All right, episode 39. We went on to talk about Hellraiser 3 and Hellraiser 4, and we meant this to all be one episode, but it ended up being about 3 hours long. So we're breaking this up into 2 episodes. I hope you don't mind. So in this one, we will end up just talking about Hellraiser 3, with the Hellraiser 4 discussion going on to episode 40. In about a week, I'll be posting that one. So this was a lot of fun. We had guests, Max Lichtor from the Pyramid Gallery. If you've ever seen their puzzle box replicas, those are pretty nice. And Mark Buckle, who just started the Hellraiser fan site and archive called The Labyrinth. And he joined us all the way from Australia. From the future, which was kind of cool, because it was 5 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday there, and it was like 1 o'clock in the afternoon on Tuesday for me. So, anyway, this was a lot of fun talking with them, and, these are guys that have obviously put a lot of thought into Hellraiser, and I thought they would be a good addition to the podcast, and they really were. And Jonathan Kui also, who joined us on the last one, Hellraiser 1 and 2 discussion. Jonathan has done a couple of Hellraiser fan films. So I thought he's great for talking about these Hellraiser sequels, and hopefully we can get some or all of these people on future episodes. This is episode 39, Hellraiser 3. The Clive Barker Podcast, episode number 39. Today we're talking about Hellraiser 3 and 4 with Jose.
Hey, guys.
And I'm Ryan. And we've got guests Jonathan Kui.
Hi there.
Max Lichtor of the Pyramid Gallery.
Greetings, everyone.
And Mark Buckle from The Labyrinth.
How are you?
All right, and Mark, you're talking to us from the future.
I am. I'm in Wednesday.
It's Tuesday afternoon for us, and it's early Wednesday morning for Mark there in Australia. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Do you guys mind if we talk about Clive Barker news a little bit first?
Go ahead.
Before we get into it. Okay, so it's just a couple of things. The official shop for Seraphim and Clive Barker just opened, the realclivebarker.com. Where you can buy like art prints and autographed books and things like that.
Yeah, and they also have an Amazon store.
Yes,
an affiliate store.
From a web design point of view, I'd want to say that the site looks really good. It's really minimalist and really good looking.
Yeah, and really simple.
Yeah, it stands out amongst all the other sort of websites, you know.
Yeah.
And it's great that we can now get stuff directly from Clive Barker and Seraphim, because, for example, there are things that have been wildly speculating on eBay. Like, for example, one thing comes to mind: the Books of Blood Stealth Press edition signed by Clive Barker.
Yeah.
On eBay, it can go up to like $200 and stuff, and you can get it from the store. Signed for like $80 or whatever it is. So So that's much more of a more direct and cheaper way to get a book signed by Clive Barker, I guess, than on eBay.
And kind of an interesting story about that one. When that Books of Blood edition came out, and then the Stealth Press went out of business, and they were going to destroy all the books, and Clive Barker said, "No, don't destroy them. I'll take them." So they drove a truck over in the middle of right in front of Clive Barker's house on Beverly Hills and just dumped a pallet of those books in the street.
Yeah.
And if you've been in Beverly Hills, like all of the the streets are really, really narrow, so they had to really hustle to get those things inside before they were blocking up traffic too much.
Right.
Funny.
And then also on Facebook, they've been working on kind of what they're calling official Candyman, official Aberrat, and also joining in with the official Hellraiser page. I guess kind of like saying this is these things originated from Clive Barker, so these are their official pages.
Yeah, we should add links to those, at least the ones we know about, to the show notes of the episode at the blog later. So you guys might want to check it out.
Yep.
Paul Kane's Hellraiser and their films and their legacy is also coming out on paperback now.
Holy cow! Oh man.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a good. Thank you.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's great.
It's been
hopefully
out of print for a while.
Yeah, I'll be looking forward to buying that. I've never read it, and I've always wanted to. And every time I want to go buy it, it's like used on Amazon for $40, and then you have to pay another $10 for shipping.
I actually bought a copy when it first came out because he used a number of the artists that we have at Pyramid Gallery. He used Eric Gross's work, Steel Ghost, and of course mentioned the gallery as well. Mm-hmm. So,
that's cool.
Yeah. It's a really good book because it goes really deep into the making of each movie. And, I learned a lot from just reading that. The things I thought I did know, but I didn't know after I read it.
Does that go up to what number, like 6 or 7?
8, I think.
Oh, 8?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I believe it was all 8.
Okay.
Who else has... Do you have the book, Johnny?
Yeah, I've got it. I actually bought it when it first came out, and then when Paul Kane contacted me about Hellraiser Dead or Winter's Lament, I actually kind of worked out a deal with him, and he actually sent me a hardcover that he signed, which was really great.
Oh, that's cool.
I think,
awesome.
Yeah.
I would just like to remind everyone that Paul Kane is also he has a book that's coming out anytime now, which is the Hellraiser interview book from Avallard Publishing. It was supposed to be published on late March this year, but I think due to unforeseen circumstances, they've had to delay the book until later in the spring. So I pre-ordered the book. Actually, it's going to be full of interviews with the cast of the Hellraiser films. Many exclusive interviews with Clive Barker, extensive one with Doug Bradley, Ashley Lawrence, Claire Higgins, Nicholas Vince, Simon Banford, Bob Keane, Peter Atkins, Anthony Hickox, who directed Hellraiser 3, Hell on Earth, which we're going to talk about today, Ken Carpenter, who was the camera head Cenobite. Kevin Yeager was one of the directors of Hellraiser Bloodline, and Gary Tunnicliffe. So it's going to have a lot of behind-the-scenes pictures. And I'm actually going to message him today, find out when this is coming from, because I pre-ordered this like months and months ago, or last year, as soon as it came out on his Facebook page.
That would
so
be good
just
for us to read both of those books and get him on the podcast.
Yeah, so just go to publishing.avallard.com, look for the Paul Kane Hellraisers book, and you can learn more about that.
Jose, can you spell Avallard for those who want to go to the site?
Yes, it's AVALARD.com.
Thanks.
Actually, it's publishing.avallard.com. Yeah, we'll add a link to that also to the show notes.
Yeah.
I just realized that I said all 8 films and I forgot that there was a 9th.
Yes.
Sorry about that.
I think everybody knew what you meant.
Okay, good. Thank you.
You mean all 2 films?
Yeah. Right on.
All right. Well, that kind of leads us right into, unless there's any more Clive Barker news that you guys want to talk about.
Completely understandable.
There was a little bit of a plug I wouldn't mind doing, if that's okay.
Sure.
Paul Kane and the Pyramid Gallery and the Labyrinth are currently working on a project together that should be released exclusively on the Pyramid Gallery and website in the next week or so.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Well, I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
Cool. We'll be watching out for that. And of course, we're going to have a link to the Pyramid Gallery in the show notes.
Why, thank you.
So, Hellraiser 3, Hell on Earth. So, what was this? This was 92 that it came out, right?
Yes.
1992. And I think other people have said it was the very first time that CGI was used in a horror movie. But I think Alien 3 also came out in the same year. And Alien 3 had a lot of CGI of the alien running around and, climbing across the ceilings and stuff like that.
I think it was also the last time that Hellraiser was in the theaters, if I'm right.
4 was in the theater here, at least in America.
Oh, okay.
Oh. When I went to 4, I actually got a ticket on my way to 4, so that didn't help me like the movie much.
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess let's start with what was our first experience with Hellraiser 3. I mean, Jonathan, do you want to go first?
Sure. I think I mentioned in the last episode.
Oh, yeah, that's right, you did.
Yeah, Hellraiser 3 was actually the first Hellraiser film I ever saw, so it was kind of an interesting way to get into the series. But I remember seeing it and not really understanding very much of it, I think because I didn't understand the backstory of Pinhead. Mm-hmm. But, in subsequent viewings of Hellraiser 1 and 2 afterwards, that's when I became totally hooked. So I remember watching it on, I think it was home video on VHS. Mm-hmm. And, I liked it. I thought it was great. I thought the chaining scene in the beginning really struck me because I'd never seen anything like that before.
And the the guy in the hospital.
In the hospital, yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah. And that VHS had the thing where you send in the proofs of purchase and you get the Clive Barker The Art of Horror video.
Yes, unfortunately, I never actually got that because the first time I saw it was on a rental, so I didn't really. Right. Yeah, it was after.
I got it from that, which was kind of nice for me because I didn't really like Hellraiser 3 that much. Yeah, for me, I had seen Hellraiser 2 and 1 already, but I never did. But Hellraiser 3 was the first one I saw in the theater.
Oh, wow.
And it was, and I want to say Candyman came out the same year, I think. So I was just like starting to, devour everything by Clive Barker, and I was trying to read the Books of Blood all in order, and I wanted to get through The Forbidden before Candyman came out in the theater because I knew it was coming really soon, and I don't know if I made it or not. I think I ended up going to see it in the theater maybe before I read the story.
Yeah, but see, I had a different experience. I saw Hellraiser 2 was the first Hellraiser I saw in the theater.
Oh wow!
And then we, me and all my party buddies, used to rent Hellraiser 1 on video from like a 7-Eleven and watch it every weekend, and then Hellraiser 2 went to the, I don't know if you guys are familiar with like Dollar Cinemas or Dollar Theater. So yeah, it came to a Dollar Cinema, so we all went to the Dollar Cinema to see Hellraiser 2, and it was a great time. But so when Hellraiser 3 was coming out, I was collecting all the Tapping the Vein comics that were coming out. I was really getting into those, and then so I think my expectations were pretty high for Hellraiser 3, and I think I caught it on cable. It was the first time I saw it. And I was a little let down, I have to say, but subsequently, I found many parts of it that I do enjoy, and obviously I have taken the Pyramid Gallery mythos from the movie, so... Right. Yeah, so...
Yeah, I think that first impression, it's hard to get past sometimes. Like, it's because it's so different in tone from Hellraiser 1 and 2. They fit together so well.
Yeah.
And 3 was kind of a departure in a lot of ways.
Yeah, he's becoming more like Freddy Krueger, it seemed, as far as the focus on Pinhead.
And that was done deliberately because a studio head had asked... Because Peter Atkins had already written a script for Hellraiser 3, and the studio people said, we want to make Pinhead like Freddy Krueger or like Jason Voorhees, so make a script like that.
Exactly.
And Doug Bradley had said it was kind of an ingenious... he thought that it was kind of an ingenious way to attempt something that was a ridiculous, a stupid thing to ask in the first place.
Right.
Thankfully, though, and it's just my opinion, but you might share the opinion. If they had put any other character into that movie, it would have just been a run-of-the-mill horror movie, boring, But being as it had Doug Bradley as Pinhead, it survived and was a great movie.
And Elliot Spencer was almost a pretty big supporting character in that movie too.
I would have loved to have seen more Elliot Spencer in Part 4. Continue on a little bit.
Great.
Yeah.
Actually, I think the fact that it was almost a commercial slasher fic really played in its favor, because we needed a departure from the heavy mythology that was presented in 1 and 2, and something a little bit more visual, something a little bit more down to earth that could connect with a greater audience. And I think Hellraiser 3 really accomplished that. It gave us a film that had probably the most Pinhead screen time out of all of the entries, and it really gave us a lot of great quotable lines from Pinhead. I mean, a lot of really great monologue that was just fantastic.
Jose, are you back?
Yes, I'm back.
All right.
I just didn't want to interrupt Jonathan. I agree 100%. Yeah. Eric, Peter Atkins, he really did a great job with all the dialogue and all the lines for Pinhead. I mean, I usually say if Clive Barker was the father of Pinhead, Peter Atkins was the nurturing mother.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because he came up with a lot of cool stuff and, a lot of concepts and a lot of dialogue. So, Pete Atkins always did a great job. And even in the versions that were never filmed, I mean, for Hellraiser 3, there is an unfilmed version that I think we've discussed in a previous episode of the podcast. Yeah, the one with the brothel from hell where Pinhead was resurrected, and there was this priest called Fever. That's a really it would have taken the whole series in a completely different direction.
And not necessarily better, just way different.
Yeah.
Was that the one that had the appearance of Philip Le Marchand?
Yes, he would actually manipulate little boxes that were little houses. And as he flicked the little house like a Rubik's Cube, walls would move and doorways would become, from going from one room to the next, they would just open into a brick wall and stuff like that. So he manipulated that stuff like that. So it was an interesting concept.
And I think go ahead.
That has a great possibility for a cartoon chase scene.
Oh yeah.
Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, in the actual script, unfilmed script of Hellraiser 3, there was an actual part where a deputy was walking through a doorway, and we would cut away to Le Marchand flipping the little house box, and all of a sudden the guy's there's like a metal thing that just slides on the door, and it cuts away his face, and he just dies, and his face is on the other side, stuck to the metal wall that just cut into the doorway. So that was a kind of a macabre, funny, dark humor moment.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and you never know how different the final product would have been. Also, I mean, sometimes it's kind of tough to judge a script because they end up they see things that don't work when they're filming and make it they adjust sort of on the fly.
I heard there was maybe 5 or 6 different scripts for this movie that didn't make it through.
Yes,
including the brothel one.
There's an essay on CliveBarker.info called "Building the Beast in Stages: The Long Making of Hell on Earth" by Peter Atkins, which is really basically the whole what it went through on development of the movie and how many different stories they went through, the different iterations of the same story. And Clive Barker was, trying to shoot some ideas with Peter Atkins, and at one point it was going to be a mummy film, kind of a mummy film. Like, I think there was a point where they were just throwing things and see what they could come up with, and one of them would be like the pyramid. One of the pyramids in Egypt was one of the original Lament configurations and stuff like that. So that's another one that we have to add to the show notes after this.
Ambitious.
it's kind of interesting, what becomes canon. A lot of it is sort of happy accidents or, studio involvement or, interference, changes things, and suddenly now that's what gets, makes it into the movie, and that's canon.
From reading up on it as well, I've heard that a lot of it's to do with alcohol.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of what gets... Sorry, Josie?
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, most of what I've read is it'll be Clive Barker, Peter Atkins sitting around drinking bottles of wine, and then waking up the next day and saying, "Well, what is this that we've written?" Throw that in the bin, try again later.
That's right. I do remember that.
I could see that. I could see that happening, and smoking cigars at the time.
Does anybody know? Because the movie opens up with the J.P. Monroe character, which I think he's pretty despicable, horrible character, but it opens up with him at the Pyramid Gallery buying the statue, and it's supposed to be the statue from the end of Hellraiser 2. Does anyone know why it's so different from the statue at the end of Hellraiser 2? I mean,
I always imagined that what it was the transference of Pinhead's essence to the statue as opposed to Julia. I think there was just like some sort of morphology they did between movies to make Pinhead the center of the movie. Mm-hmm. But that's what I just see it like that. But I don't have any real.
I mean, it's like a wooden pillar with like real physical things stuck on it or inside of it or something, and then it's like a big old marble statue, or not marble, I don't know, stone statue. I'm not sure what that material is supposed to be.
Mm-hmm. Well, I got a couple of theories.
With each subsequent... Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, during the film, as he takes additional victims, they become incorporated into the pillar itself. So I always had figured that those were just other victims that he had managed to accrue in the time between Hellraiser 2 and 3.
Right. That's what I was going to say also. I mean, I would say that we're never really said that, but according to what Johnny Q just mentioned, and according to endless discussions that we've had over the years in places like the Hellbound Web and stuff like that, we would come to the conclusion that there's two points that I want to make. The in-world theory would be that it just evolved as his evil was inside it, kind of transforming it, shaping it, and it was kind of like getting this add-ons to it. And the other one is just that it's more aesthetically pleasing. I mean, it's an awesome statue. I mean, when you look at it, and if it was just a piece of wood with like hooks stuck to it and dildos like we see in the end of Hellbound, it would not be as attractive. Just like the box is attractive, I think it was making itself attractive, so someone would actually pay attention to it and try to get it for themselves.
Well, and everything's all covered with this stone or this whatever plasticky kind of material that's covers the whole statue, but somehow that dude in the hospital got the box out of it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So was the box like just kind of halfway stuck in there, or I guess we don't really ever know that.
Well, there's some clues with the second movie in Hellbound when the pillar rises from the mattress, and we see Pinhead's face is on the pillar. Yeah. Not only that, I think there are some panels of the box on the wooden pillar as well. So I think there's some tie-ins with the between the stone pillar and the wood pillar that way.
I also remember seeing a kind of demonic version of Butterball's face on the pillar.
Yeah.
And the Guardian, and the Puzzle Guardian also, of course, that speaks.
Oh, yeah. And so in Hellraiser 3, it starts out Pinhead's face is upside down, right? Because when the rat bites his hand, and he shakes his hand, and the blood kind of oozes down the statue and goes into Pinhead's mouth.
Well, there's two heads. There's two faces. There's one of them that's the main one, where he's just like a mummy or a pharaoh. He's got his arms crossed over his body, I think.
There are two? Because that would explain it, I guess. Because I always was that was my question: is how did he start? Why did he start out upside down and then later he's upright?
Something I caught something I caught last night when I was reviewing the film. What I noticed was when that happens, when the rat comes out, the pillar is actually outside of his personal chamber. It's like next to a bunch of pool tables in the bar itself. Well, then after he's bitten by it, he takes it into his personal chamber and keeps it close to him. So that was something I noticed last night that I hadn't noticed before.
Yeah, right. Like he didn't want other people to see it or to mess with it. Yeah.
Or at least keep it personal to him for some reason.
Yeah, or maybe after the dude took the box off of it and got killed, he decided maybe I better not leave this out for the public anymore.
Right.
Yeah, I think he just realized that there was something special about that, and he wanted to keep it to himself. Yeah.
Yeah.
With the whole blood thing happens and everything, so you just go like, "Oh, what's this?"
Yeah. I wanted to talk a bit about the Guardian. Something I didn't know last night. The Guardian for the Pyramid Gallery is played by Lawrence Mortorf.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's actually the producer for Hellraiser 3.
Oh, really?
But he went on to produce like over 30 films, and I think this was like his fourth film that he produced.
He's not as grubby and disgusting as the one in Hellraiser.
No.
He looks more like a regular businessman.
Yeah.
Less of a cricket fetish.
Yeah.
Well, he's still pretty grimy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But it's a funny cameo that the actual producer would turn out to be one of the characters of the film. Just like Anthony Hickox appears in when the guy who plays Camerahead, I forget his name, the name of the character.
Hulk Hogan.
Right,
Oh.
yeah. Yeah, when he's like flipping through the channels when Joey calls him, Doc, exactly. Ken Carpenter, he plays Doc. And he's flipping the channels when Joey's saying that, Doc, are you seeing what's happening at the boiler room? And he's flipping through channels, and there's a special on TV with Anthony Hickox, director.
Yeah.
There's a little cameo there.
Yeah.
That scene reminded me of the scene in The Shining where, what's his name? The guy's in his room watching television, and he gets a call about something going down at the hotel, and he's flipping through channels much the same way. That was just something odd that I saw last night.
There was what is going on? There was nothing on TV. What are you talking about? Kind of a thing.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask about that. That was something I wrote in my notes. Where do you suppose that fake news reporting came from? That Joey saw on her TV.
It's a good question.
It might be like an illusion created by Elliot Spencer, just like the radio who starts playing without being plugged into the socket.
Yeah, that could be. That would make more sense than like saying Pinhead did it.
Yeah. Or Pinhead did it. I don't know, because Pinhead also wanted Joey to come to the boiler room. So that's actually an interesting, an interesting
That's actually
point.
what I thought it was. I thought it was Pinhead summoning this vision to lure Joey to the boiler room where he could get the box back from her.
I think it was nice of Doc to go down there and humor her, even though there was nothing on TV.
Yeah, poor guy.
Yeah. Yeah, and what's the deal with... It's kind of weird the way being transformed into a Cenobite in this movie makes you this kind of sarcastic, evil person, and they're not the same... I don't know. Like, he was such a nice guy, and he was always trying to help her out, and now, now he's like just a jerk who makes puns when he kills people.
That's a wrap.
That's a wrap.
Ready for your close-up, Joey? It's like, why are you teasing me? I always wanted a close-up.
But you know what? I really find that stuff, it's great. It's part of the movie's charm for me. I really enjoy those moments. I really do. Yeah. I consider Hellraiser 3... I'm sorry. I just consider Hellraiser 3 the odd one of the bunch at the time. Mm-hmm. Because, one, it came out of the dissolution of New World Pictures. Of course, Chris Figg had to sell the rights to Hellraiser. And even in subsequent compilations of Hellraiser films, the third one sometimes is not there. They just go from 1, 2 to 4. Yeah. So I just thought, but at the time it was, it was like Cricklewood, Pinewood, Hollywood. So that was the one that made Pinhead really, really big.
Yeah. Yeah, and actually there's a couple of levels of suspension of disbelief, and it's almost too much. There's the Pinhead getting separated from, like, the spirit of Elliot Spencer getting separated from Pinhead, and now they're two people. and one of them is the evil demon, and the other one is like the good person that got, and that part, and then also a dream of one war is a dream of all wars. I mean, I think intuitively that makes sense, but when Elliot Spencer explains it, it sounds stupid.
It's just something to make the story move on. It's not something that you're meant to dwell on it. Yeah, it's like Johnny was saying. It's just a bridge, just a way for him to explain how he got into her mind.
But I think if that had been done just visually and not like explained, I think that would have been a lot better.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
If they had sort of melded the Vietnam and the World War I together into like one dream and something like that, instead of just saying a dream of one war is a dream of all wars.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'd noticed that Terry, when she's staying in the apartment, Joey's apartment, she's reading a book called let me see if I can find it real quick. I took some notes last night.
Oh, the one that Terry grabbed off the shelf?
Yeah, Battles of the 20th Century.
Yeah.
So there's a kind of a tie-in there with Joey being interested in war because of her father's experience.
Yeah.
Right. That's a good catch. Yeah, when she's like peeking out from behind the book and she's looking at the box and she's like looking at the book, looking at the box,
right?
And then she decides to pick it up. Yeah, Battles of the 20th Century. So I guess that also is kind of a subliminal bridge to show us that there's a connection between Joey's dreams and the box, and it's a good catch.
I loved when there was the creation of Pinhead in the previous movies. You could see the radio start up, and then Pinhead gets created, and then later in the movie, the radio's back again in the closet. I thought that was really good.
Yeah, that was cool.
No, yeah, I appreciate all the.
And do you know it's the actually same radio that they use for both films?
Oh, really?
If you listen to the commentary on Hellbound, Tony Randell explains that later when they were filming, or was it Peter Atkins, because he was involved in the Hellraiser 3, he says that when they got the order for the prop house to send one of those old radios, they sent back the exact same radio that they used on Hellbound. It was the exact same radio.
Wow.
So they thought it was a huge coincidence. So it's the same radio, shows up in both films.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I just want to mention a quick thing about the Cenobite designs for this film. I know that CD Cenobite gets a lot of crap, but I gotta tell you, I think I'm one of those rare people out there who really likes the CD Cenobite, and let me explain why. And I've been holding this in for a very long time. I think that CD was a great Cenobite because he had the elements of symmetry that you would expect to find, in an ordered Cenobite. And it was a nice contemporary touch. I can't believe I'm defending him, but I am. It was a nice contemporary touch to use those CDs in a way that, still kind of mimicked the body alterations that, had become a hallmark of what we'd come to expect from Hellraiser. And I don't know, I just thought it was kind of cool.
Because the CD sticks into his mouth, like right below his nose.
Hey, if a guy can... okay. But if a guy can throw a playing card into a watermelon skin, then, you never know.
Yeah.
Maybe he's better to... I don't know.
Oh, have you ever thrown a CD at a friend? It can really hurt. It really can hurt, especially if it's one of those CDs from the 90s that were really heavy, But I have to ask something here. I know that the whole premise of these Cenobites is that they're handmade, and so he had to make do with whatever was around at the time. And, of course, the tools of the trade end up being incorporated in the transformation of that CD, Cenobite. I just wonder if Cenobite, if a chef ever opened the Hellraiser box, if we could be looking at Forkhead or something like that, But
the Gordon Ramsay Cenobite.
Yeah.
Oh my God!
Nice.
And going back to their Cenobite designs, it used to be that I would think, okay, Barbie is probably the only one that I like out of all of them. But just watching it again the other day, I saw him, walking out of the nightclub, and he's holding a drink shaker in his hand. I'm like, what are you doing? Put that down. You're a Cenobite now. You don't need that anymore.
Well, that was the alcohol for the fire.
The gasoline.
But did he really need that? And so was it infinite? Did it just have an infinite amount of alcohol inside of it?
And how do we get a hold of this container?
Yes.
You have to keep an open mind. What kind of accessories would it have after the NECA Cenobite came out if there wasn't a little shaker to put there? They
don't have to hold things.
But I would just like to say that there is a great story could be a companion to Hellraiser 3, which is Children of Fire by Peter Atkins, where he actually goes and he creates a backstory for all these characters, for the DJ guy, for for Doc, and he creates this backstory that involves most of those people. Like Doc once saw something that really scarred him for life. He went into this crime scene where the blood was all over the walls, like a person had been completely destroyed inside the room. So it kind of hints that it might have been something that the Cenobites did. And it also talks about the DJ guy, that he's this guy who we'll add the link to that because Children of Fire by Peter Atkins is a great companion story for the Hellraiser 3 Cenobites.
And he was Barbie, correct?
Yes. Well, I don't know if he was the actual Cenobite, though, was he?
No, I think he was, actually.
Yeah, he was in the makeup chair. Yeah.
Oh, very neat.
Yeah.
Can somebody explain what was in J.P. Cenobite's head? Was that just a random piston? I never understood the reason for that design.
It's symbolic of sex, right?
Yeah.
It looks like something taken from the bike, and at the same time, it looks like a camera tripod. So I never
considered the bike before, but the bike. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's always sitting on the motorcycle when he calls Terry, or he's got the motorcycles even.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess. So, what was I thinking of? And back to the Cenobite designs again. So, I guess my main problem is I'm trying to put together. So, Pinhead has been exiled, sort of, from hell, and now he's unbound. Right? He can kill anybody that he wants. But where does his power come from? I mean, where do the chains come from? How is he able to make Cenobites if he's not connected to hell anymore?
I don't know that he's exiled from hell.
Well, he doesn't have to. He said he was unbound, and unstoppable.
I guess he was kind of stranded on Earth because of the pillar being stranded on Earth. But I would say he still maintains a tithe of his power with him. That's my interpretation of it.
I always kind of imagined that the chains are sort of coming out of little portals, from hell.
Yeah.
And
so that's just one. That's one of the sort. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Because you never see where they start. You only see where they're going.
Yeah.
I just always found that it just seemed like a lot of continuity flaws between Hellbound and Hellraiser 3, and I just don't think they really considered it that much between the two movies. I think the fans really, tied them together, and I think they, people have done great jobs of. Making it a cohesive story, but I just don't know if they even really considered it when they made the movie itself, and that was some of the offense I had for Hellraiser 3.
Yeah, but that was kind of how I felt when I first saw it too. I just, it just didn't feel like a Hellraiser movie.
Oh, I loved it. I saw it as I saw it in the Fantastic Film Festival in Portugal. It was like a European premiere, and I got the tickets like really, really early on. And this was like 20 miles away from my house. I could just take the train and go. So I was there. I met Doug Bradley and everything. It was really awesome. He was there in Portugal for the whole thing. So I thought it was a pretty funny movie at the time. But of course, I was still young. I didn't have as much insight as I have now over behind the scenes. I still had the whole magic of the movie thing going on, and I was like,
I can understand.
Sure.
That. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So
I would
really
feel totally differently if I had had that experience.
Yeah.
Yep.
After you go and start thinking about it, and you start analyzing it, and you start comparing it to other things, and reading what would have been like this script version, that script version, then it starts becoming a different picture. You start looking at it more technically. But as an experience, I had a fun time watching the movie. I really did.
Well, it's like when people put down the Cabal cut of Nightbreed because, like, it's because it of the quality of the footage or whatever. That kind of irritates me, probably for the same reason.
Yeah, it's they're talking from their own experience. That's their cinematic experience is that they're looking at a work print.
Yeah.
So to some extent, they have a point to make when they mention that. But at the same time, of course, they should also focus on the overall thing, the overall improvement of the story. But, that's off topic.
Well, and I think I would have liked to have seen Pinhead more the character that he was in Hellraiser 1. And, because it's like in every subsequent movie, he gets more and more emotive. And, like, he's like in Hellraiser 3, he's yelling at Joey.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And there's a thing with the makeup too. Like, I mean, another reason he's not expressive is because the pins are supposed to be driven into the bone. So when he's yelling and stuff, the ones that are on his eyebrows are bouncing up and down, and they're not supposed to be doing that.
Yeah. Well, at the time they were really trying to streamline the whole makeup process, weren't they? I mean, I remember that they came up with a version of the makeup that took like 1 hour to put on.
Yeah. And probably that has the worst... Well, I think Doug Bradley said that he thought in Hellraiser 3 it probably had the worst makeup out of all of the movies.
It looks a little too fake. I agree. It looks like he tried giving Pinhead more fleshy tones, I think.
Yeah.
And so it didn't work very well.
And Pinhead's not meant to be walking down the street or in a pasture.
Sure. Yeah.
Oh, the pasture scene in the sunlight.
Yeah. Yeah. That section,
That scene made me cringe.
Yeah.
Please don't do this to Pinhead.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I guess another thing, I think back in the 90s, I had high expectations for movies that were supposed to be like apocalyptic and, this was hell on earth. And, what hell on earth really translated to when you actually go to see the movie is like a manhole flies off of the manhole, a manhole cover flies off and a couple of store windows explode, and I think a car explodes. And that was like hell on earth.
Do you remember that this was supposed to be like New York, I imagine?
Yeah.
But I think they shoot this in like Charlotte, North Carolina or someplace like that?
I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, they sure did.
Greensboro, right? Greensboro, North Carolina? Well, somewhere in North Carolina.
Okay. Okay, yeah. I remember it was North Carolina. I just didn't know where it was exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and I kind of had those same kind of expectations for like End of Days, and that movie, and that movie was a big letdown.
I think another thing that also affects the experience of people who had seen Hellraiser 1 and 2 is the music. Because in the other previous two movies, the music was this kind of epic orchestral score, Christopher Young.
And it was definitely a step up from Hellraiser to Hellraiser 2, and you could follow the progression of the music. Yeah, definitely.
And then when you get to Hellraiser 3, you have, of course, Randy Miller, I think, makes the score for the orchestral parts, but then you got a lot of rock and roll in there. And
they also jam in stuff from Hellraiser 1 and 2 soundtracks at different parts.
Sure, they use little themes, motifs, yeah.
I think this is actually the last time we hear the Hellraiser 1 theme anywhere in the series, am I correct?
That's true.
I'm sure you're probably right.
Yeah, because then on Bloodline, it's different. It's a more...
It's the Hellbound. It's the Hellbound. Yeah. We hear the Hellbound theme in Bloodline.
Right.
That's the truly last time that we hear any
right.
of
Yeah.
I really like the score that they used when the Terry, Cenobite, and JP are surrounding Joey, and they're burning her with cigarettes and hitting her with. I really like the score at that point.
It's a track called Cenobite Death Dance, the one with the violins.
Yeah.
I wish I had paid more attention to that. I was so annoyed by that scene. It's like, in Terry, now she's a Cenobite. What does she get? She gets like cigarettes jammed in her neck, and
she gets to dream.
I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, do they even sleep?
Yeah, we should call this episode "Overanalyzers."
When does she have time to dream? When did she ever?
Hey, what do the Cenobites eat? Do they eat Mexican food? I don't know. That's one of those things, you're just overanalyzing it a little bit, because then you're going to ask me, but where do the chains actually come from? Are they materializing from? So,
well,
yeah,
in this movie, they showed the first time ever they showed the ends of the back ends of the chains, right, in the hospital.
Right, they did. Yes, you're right.
They were just like sticking up in the air.
Maybe they just shoot out from somewhere, from the shadows or something.
Or maybe someone cut them off.
Wait a minute, but those chains were dragging on the ground before they started becoming electrified. So the fact that they were floating in midair doesn't necessarily mean that's where they were coming from.
That's true.
Right.
It's kind of weird, because it's like, did someone cut them off? And if they did that, why wouldn't they have just tried to pull them out of the poor guy instead?
It's interesting. Yeah. Last night I found out that the victim is wearing a ring that I actually possess. It's like a double skull ring back from the late 80s. It has like a chain. So I actually dug it up, and I got a picture of it that
that's cool.
I'll send to you guys. But
awesome.
It was funny. Just like, it's got my ring.
Yeah.
And then that poor guy's head exploded.
After the Hellraiser 3 Cenobites.
His head exploded twice.
Yeah.
Well,
bad luck.
How would you like to be that guy?
Yeah. I always thought that was like different perspectives of the same explosion, like we've seen in several movies.
Well, that was a joke.
Yeah. But what were you going to say, Johnny?
It's like when Van Damme kicks somebody 60 times.
Yeah.
I was just wondering what your guys' thoughts were on what happened. What do you think conceivably would have happened to those, I guess, the handmade Cenobites after they got sent back to the labyrinth by the box? Do you think they would stay Cenobites?
That was something I wrote in my notes too, because nobody thought they were good enough to bring back in any other movie.
I think they might have to do with the fact that a different effects team took over for the other films. Mm. Like for Hellraiser 4, it was Kevin Yeager, and then there was Gary Tunnicliffe, and I think at the time, Image Animation, I think that the third Hellraiser might have been the last one where Bob Kane actually worked with the Cenobites. So after that point, it became like Gary Tunnicliffe that started doing the makeup and the Cenobites. 2 Hours in the Dark, I think. Isn't it right, Johnny?
Mm-hmm. I think that's right, yeah.
Yeah. So maybe it was a matter of design, so they just came up with new stuff.
Well, and CD Cenobite probably ran out of CDs to throw at people.
You're lucky they didn't create Laserdisc Cenobite.
That would really hurt.
And we have gone more digital now, so with downloads of MP3s and things like that, there's not much need for CD Cenobite.
Yeah, well, then he could throw all of those iPod knockoffs at people, like the little Samsung iPods and stuff.
Yeah, they could put little
or Magnavox or whatever.
2 little iPod Nanos on his eyes. Yeah, and then he's all white and shiny, so yeah. Well, So the movie has a different tone because of all the rock and roll music. Yeah. I really love the part where the boiler room massacre happens.
I think,
it's a little cheesy because Pinhead is always laughing, and it's always seems to be the same canned laughter going by, like.
And why is he doing it? I mean, he doesn't really seem to have an agenda other than getting the puzzle box back from from Joey.
He's more chaotic in this film.
He
just wants to kill people for fun.
Yeah.
I did like the unseen parts in that scene in the boiler room when the doors are closed and you can hear what's going on and just see the blood coming underneath.
And it starts out with really a lot of screams, and then it becomes less and fewer screams and more blood coming out from under the door.
Yeah.
And that sound effect is awesome.
It's a great shot.
With the tunes, yeah. The sound editing in this film was absolutely first rate. I mean, they really managed to composite together some really good sounds for a really great effect.
Yeah, I mean, and this is a movie I think made up of good moments, but I think it's hard. It's hard to put it together with Hellraiser 1 and 2.
Yeah. Ryan, do you remember? Of course, you remember. This was last month, but when we were in Vegas for my wedding, and we went to this Eli Roth club called the Gortorium, I was getting a little flashback from Hellraiser 3 with the baby heads and the chainsaws and
you're right.
Yeah, that was cool. Yeah.
None of them were moving though.
No, thank goodness. But going a little bit back in history, this. I would just like to say that the idea for the Hellraiser 3 started off as early as right by the time when they were doing Hellbound. They were already thinking about doing Hell on Earth. But, of course, Clive Barker and Chris Figg at the time were partners in the Film Futures company, the production company that had made Hellraiser and was in the process of making Hellbound, and they wanted to make Hell on Earth. And then what happened was that, of course, New World Company went out of business and they had to sell it. I wrote an essay once about all this. Maybe I can add this one to the show notes as well, because I once wrote an essay called The Story Behind Hellraiser Bloodline, the dissection of Alan Smithy, and I do go through a few things about Hellraiser 3 as well, but I'll add this one to the show notes after.
Yeah, that would be cool. I mean,
one thing I noticed last night, I dug out an issue of Cinebeam magazine that Ed Martinez put out in the early 90s, and they actually were on set, and Clive Barker actually directed a scene in the movie. Were you guys aware of this at all?
No.
There's rumors about his involvement, but nobody really ever... I mean, everybody has different stories.
Yeah, there's the scene where Joey is in the Quonset hut with Elliot and Pinhead, and there's like a wide-angle shot where she grabs the box. Are you guys remember that at all?
Yes.
Yeah, I guess that was the scene that Clive was actually on set with his parents and somebody called Malcolm Smith.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess, but he took over the direction just for that particular scene. And there's also the thing that rises up out of the pet that rises up out of the ground to attack Joey.
Yes.
I guess during that scene, Clive wanted more blood, but he said he wanted to be more like monkey sperm.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So,
it does look like that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But there was something else I read that they said that when he gets stabbed in the chest with the Leviathan kind of configuration, I guess somebody asked on set, why doesn't the blood spurt out? And then somebody answered, don't you know, Cenobites don't have blood pressure. Uh-huh. So, yeah, it's a really interesting article. Yeah. That's really hard to find, but Cinebeam issue number 7 has them on set, and there's a lot of interesting things I had never known of before, and I just read it again last night and picked it just because I knew I was coming on the show today. So,
right. Well, that thing about blood pressure is funny, but it's also kind of an interesting point because it's the second that somebody starts getting transformed into a Cenobite, they're immortal, right? I mean, because like the stuff that happened to Dr. Chenard or any of those people in Hellraiser 3, they got turned into Cenobites, they should die. Right. You know, right off the bat. But they don't. And in Hellraiser 2, it's sort of explained with the blue goo that gets pumped into their bodies and their blood gets pumped out.
I always thought that was maybe formaldehyde getting pumped in to keep the body going for a bit longer.
Except it's not blue. But that's funny, that whole thing about Clive Barker being involved with actually shooting a couple of scenes.
That's
Doug
cool.
Bradley was involved with doing some effects shots. He, you know the scene where that guy, Joey's running away from the Cenobites down the street, and there's camera head shows up, and he's following her, and all of a sudden there's this guy with long hair that says, "Hey, baby, where are you going?" And and Camerahead just gives him his extreme close up, and like shoots his camera through his head, and just that section, that part, that effect where the camera goes through the other guy's head and then goes back out, that was made by Doug Bradley. He was helping out with the effects crew, and they let him do that shot. And he's actually listed in the makeup department credits as Bill Bradley.
Bill Bradley.
Yeah, just a little piece of trivia there. He was the one. Yeah,
I had no idea.
Yeah.
I wonder how much time he ends up spending on set when he's not, when he's not dressed up as Pinhead.
I hear that according to that Cinebeam interview, or not interview, when they were on set, they say he's a horrible singer. I guess he likes to sing on set a lot, and they say he's tone deaf. So,
that's funny.
Oh boy. Yeah. Well, I think that most of the time when he's on set, it's because he's going to be needed. And what he does complain a lot is that when he's on set and he sits on the makeup chair really early in the morning, he gets the makeup done, and then it's basically just waiting around for his shot to come. Yeah. And sometimes it could be hours and hours. He's just sitting in his trailer or just walking around in full makeup of Pinhead, and he can't really, eat much or anything. So
or take a nap
or take a nap or anything, because that suit was not very comfortable to sit down or lay down in. So yeah, he complains a lot about that he usually had to wait for a long time. And then of course when the time comes for him to shoot his scenes, it's who knows how many takes it's going to take. So.
I just wanted to add, for those who are fans of the music, particularly of any of the 3 Hellraiser films that we've spoken about so far in the past 2 episodes, there was a great box set called The Hellraiser Chronicles that was put out. It was I think a 3 CD set that had a little booklet as well, and a really nice cover with like an image of skin being peeled back and then the Hellraiser Chronicles logo on it. If you can find that, it's been long out of print, but if you can find that, it's worth having if you really like to collect.
It totally is.
Is that 1, 2, and 3?
Yes.
Did they put the high point music on the Hellraiser 2 part?
I don't think so. I have that, but I don't remember that. I don't think there is.
Yeah, I have the 3 separate discs, but I'd be interested in seeing that. I've never heard of that before.
Yeah, that's
cool. It's a little digipack thing, and it opens to the right, to the left, and then downwards, and you have like 3 CDs there, and it's really cool. It's a really cool set. I have that too. I also have the 2 separate editions of the soundtrack for Hellraiser 3: Hell on Earth. One is the score, and the other one is the rock and roll music.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I just have the score.
They used to do that it was weird in the 90s that they would have separate CD releases with the one has the music and or one has the rock score and one has the thematic or the orchestral score.
Yeah, one of them is called the score, the other is called the soundtrack. So basically,
they should just put it all together.
The Devil's Rejects is a recent example. I've got the score.
They did that on that one too. Or like the Crow. It was really easy to get the soundtrack that had the soundtrack, but the score one was hard to find.
And Johnny, you were a fan of Terry Farrell before she was in Hellraiser, right?
Yes, I knew her from Star Trek Deep Space Nine, which actually I think it came out just after Hellraiser 3. So I think it was after I started watching Deep Space Nine that I went back and saw Hellraiser 3.
Okay.
Yeah. And here's an interesting piece of trivia. The Anchor Bay Region 2 widescreen disc, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm almost certain that I'm not. The audio for that entire disc is pitched half a step higher than the audio in the Region 1. You can tell when you listen to Terry Farrell as Joey speaking, because on that Region 2 disc, her voice is slightly higher, and if you have a DVD player where you can actually lower the pitch by half a step, then it sounds like all the other DVD releases.
I never really noticed that. I'll have to check, because I have the Anchor Bay box with the 2 versions of Hellraiser 3, except now I'm in California and that set is back in Portugal. But one day I'll bring it back here and I'll check that. It's really cool that they took the time to put the full screen version and then the widescreen version uncut, of course, because there's an extra 2-3 minutes of scenes like there was also a German edition.
Was the extra scene, and I think there was the flashback to 1921 India. I think were those two the extra scenes,
and the scene where JP is saying goodbye to his employees, and he's approaching the pillar, and he starts hearing these rat noises. It's a little more extended there, and what else? Yeah, there are a few bits here and there.
That's a horror trope that gets used a lot, where somebody sees a hole and they're a little bit afraid of it, so they stick their hand inside.
Yeah. But before the Anchor Bay set came out, the best edition to have was German edition, which was called the German Red edition, and that was the uncut version, the first one that I saw. And actually, I had been to Germany a few times. And I had been looking for it a lot, and I could never find it. And then eventually I found it online, and I bought it. So that was the first time I saw the uncut version of Hellraiser 3, Hell on Earth. It was cool.
I've just only seen the theatrical cut.
And then I got a work print version of Hellraiser 3, which is missing some effects. Yes, I have a work print version of Hellraiser 3, which is lacking some effects. It's got a completely alternate score. Because at the time the score hadn't been made yet. There are missing effects shots. Some voices are different. Some takes are different. And I will tell you all about this afterwards. We might do an episode for the work prints of Hellraiser 3 and 4.
Does it still include the scene with Armored Saint in it?
I'm not sure. I'll have to check that, because it's been a while since I've seen the work print of Hellraiser 3. But
it helped me become a fan of Armored Saint, that movie.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd seen them live like the year before. I think they opened for Alice Cooper. I wasn't a huge fan of theirs, but I always thought their lead guitarist looked a lot like Randy Rhoads from Ozzy Osbourne. Yeah.
Oh, and another scene that is in the uncut version of Hellraiser 3 is we actually get to see when Elliot is walking hand in hand with Joey. He's going through scenes from his past, and one of the scenes from his past is him in India in 1921, and he's sitting at the table with another guy with a big fuzzy hat on.
Yeah.
And it's very similar, very analog to Frank's scene where he's buying the box. So I think that scene is in the uncut version, but it's not in the normal DVD version.
Now, see, I saw that scene last night, but it looked like it was like a pan screen version. But I was watching a widescreen version of the scene, but it looked like they had zoomed in up on who was there, Joey and Spencer. But it was very odd. I was wanting to, since you brought it up, I wanted to know what the scene actually looks like. If I got like a bogus copy of it or something, because it looked very much like a pan screen.
Yeah. There is if you go to the script, to the draft of it, there's a draft from, I think it's like 1 of July of 91. And he's going like, well, you can read here. He says, "The war pulled poetry out of some of us. Others it affected differently. This is me a few years later. We're in India, by the way, and it's 1921. I was like many survivors, lost souls with nothing left to believe in but gratification. We'd seen God fail, you see, so many dead. For us, God too fell at Flanders. We adjusted to the loss, and if we mourned in silence. Thousands drank themselves to death. Others went further. I went further. I thought I was a lost soul, but until this frozen moment, I didn't even know what the phrase meant. And it's supposed to be the part where he's like in front of the other guy. It's a guy with a big beard, and he's got like a white fuzzy hat on. It looks like kind of a Pakistani hat or whatever. And it says, Joey asks him, "And what is this frozen moment?" And he says, "The cusp of my life, what I was, what I am, what I will be, past, present, future, all bound here at this timeless moment of decision. I was an explorer of forbidden vices and pleasures. Opening the box was my final act of exploration, of discovery." And, of course, then it goes on. But this isn't the script. The actual uncut scene doesn't involve all of this dialogue. But I just thought it was really cool stuff that Peter Atkins wrote. I'm sorry it never made it to the film.
That's a lot of exposition for him to say while they're walking along all these corpses or whatever.
Yeah, but that is supposed to be an exposition scene where Elliot basically is explaining to Joey what's going on, what they need to do, and how they're going to do it. So, I was cool with it. I didn't think it'd break the movie too much, to be honest. I thought it made us realize what was going on, and I was fine with it. I didn't, better that than the whole scene with the boiler room and Pinhead just killing people randomly. Yeah, even though that's, a guilty pleasure scene.
Actually, one scene we didn't really talk about at all is in the church. With the priest. Yeah, I am the way. Yeah, that's really cool. Any of you guys want to tackle that one? My thoughts on it were, watching it again this time. The first time I saw it, I went to a theater with my friend who was, kind of religious at the time. He's not now, but he said, "Why is it that when these things happen that God never does anything? It's like God didn't come and defend this priest guy or anything." And I was like, I don't know, but watching it now, the thing that bugs me is that Pinhead's going through a lot of effort to make fun of religion, and pulling those pins in his head were huge. They were like 3 feet long, and chunks of his brain comes out with the pins, and then he jams them through his hand, and then he says, "I am the way," and then he laughs at his own joke.
They looked more like little worms to me.
That's what I thought. What I thought about the scene was that it really focused on the priest's unbelief in anything supernatural.
Yeah.
I think that's what they were kind of focusing on, because she's like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah.
So it was. I think what they were playing up on was like an ineffectual kind of faith that was just there as a. I'm not sure if it was even supposed to be that deep.
He said demons are parables; they're metaphors.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I always thought that, and if I can get metaphysical here, I thought that one of the answers to your friend's question might have been that God created natural laws that the world must abide to, and he can't just walk in and do miracles out of, all the time. Otherwise, he would be breaking the laws he set for his own creation. So, I don't know.
Mm. Well, wow. You have a steward of Joey there who's actually, while all that's happening, she's actually rescuing him by working the box. So, in that sense, you can say that there's an ally that the priest has, that actually saves him from being tortured by Pinhead, I guess,
or allowing Spencer to connect with Joey.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And in the script, they really are supposed to be worms. They're supposed to be infernal worms, dark, slimy, and befangled.
Really? So they're not chunks of his brain. That's what I always thought they were chunks of his brain. And I'm like, doesn't that make you dumb?
No. That's a good one.
They're worms. That's interesting.
Yes, they're supposed to be worms.
All this time, it's been like 20 years. I thought that was his brain.
At that point, what's the difference? If they're eating his brain, they're one and the same.
Yeah, and
this is your brain on hell, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a scene supposed to mimic like a kind of dark communion or something, because he takes a chunk of his body and feeds it down the priest's throat, and it's like, oh, this is my body, this is my flesh, happy are those that come to my supper. So I always thought that scene was very iconoclastic, as Pinhead should be,
Yeah, but
Pinhead's supposed to be the epitome of hedonism and, the self-exploration and...
it's a popular scene, because didn't NECA actually make a figure of that particular scene of him above with the altar?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Screaming made the first kit from Pinhead. Well, that's not really there's a little altar, but it's not a church altar. Never mind.
Right. No, but I think they actually NECA made the exact scene with his arms, like in the cross position, if I remember right.
Tilted to the side.
They did, yeah.
Yeah.
From the third series, I think, or second, I don't remember.
Yeah, I didn't get past the third series. I wish I would have, but I just collected the first two.
But I felt like the Pinhead from Hellraiser 1 and 2 would have been above all of that stuff.
Yeah. I'm with you.
which is what makes this film so interesting, because he is unbound, so he's basically been restrained this whole time. So this is him letting loose.
Yeah. I mean, and then that kind of, when we get into Hellraiser 4, we can talk about how is that Pinhead from Hellraiser 4 different now from the Pinhead from Hellraiser 3.
And don't forget that he was supposed to be, like Johnny said, unbound. It's just the evil part of Pinhead that we're seeing. There's also the whole British restraint and goodness from Elliot Spencer, who then gets reunited with him at the end. So, that makes him a little more, I guess, for Hellraiser 4, it's supposed to make him a little more complete as a person. Like, everyone is multifaceted. Everyone has a hidden side. Everyone has a serious side. Everyone has a funny side. Mm-hmm. I guess here we're supposed to see, like, the good side of the person who became Pinhead and the evil side, the side that wanted to go further and wallow in excess and do whatever it wanted to do, take over the world. So that's this Pinhead, which is a different one from the other movies.
I just missed the continuity with Leviathan and the mythos of the second movie. I just wish they would have had a little bit more connection. But I do appreciate the movie for everything it is, for what it is, and as far as it being a basic horror flick. So yeah.
And I think when the box recalled the other Cenobites, well, when it called them all back, and that little circle came up out of the top, and then like this, I thought that effect was kind of cool.
Yeah,
and it was never done like that before, or probably since, right?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah.
And I think, Mark, you are particularly fond of the whole Labyrinth and Leviathan thing, right? I mean, you've made a whole website based on it.
Yeah. I sort of see, and you were sort of alluding to it earlier, that Hellraiser 3 is a little bit more of a popcorn movie. You're not supposed to analyze it too much. Just go along, have a good time, eat some popcorn.
That's how I enjoy it now. Back in the day, I was younger, and it was hard for me to break the continuity. But that's exactly how I treat it now, and it's a much better movie for me, and I enjoy it. I've watched it twice since you guys invited me on the show now. So that's saying a lot.
It feels to me a little bit like, oh look, Pinhead is acting in this film, like he's gone along and. If he was a real-life character, he's come along and he's helping them out a little bit by doing a cameo in a horror film.
Right. It was too bad at the same time he was doing those MTV things that... he was...
The spring break, the alleged spring break thing that nobody ever put up anywhere in the internet.
No, I can find... I saw it live. It was on, after I got off work. And
man.
He's there steering a big witch's cauldron.
I saw it at the time that it came out, too.
Yeah. With, like, girls in bikinis or something were inside the cauldron. I can't remember what was going on, but I just remember, it was just something else,
And he was, like, standing in line to go into some club or something. I can't remember what it was. Or to go into the MTV Awards or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know if I saw that segment. I just remember him on the stage with the cauldron,
Oh, okay.
Do you remember what exactly does he say? I don't remember. I don't remember reading what he said, but he said something about "Welcome to Spring Break" or something.
Yeah, there's a transcript out there someplace. You can probably find the transcript. I can't find the actual recording itself.
Yeah. I also have a picture that I took once from I think it was Corbis Images, I think. And I was once looking around for Hellraiser images on the Corbis website, and I came up with this picture of Pinhead out in the sunlight in front, I think, of the Kodak Theater or something. And apparently this was something that they did for Bloodline to promote it. And I remember taking this picture to Doug Bradley's website, dougbradley.co.uk, and asking him about that picture. What was this picture? Because it's Pinhead on a red carpet coming out of a limousine, and it's a picture of him in the daylight, and you see palm trees behind him and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's what I remember seeing.
And then he explained that this was something that they actually didn't go into the theater. It was just something that they came up as kind of a little event to show up and get photographed on. And he was on a limo with Valentina Vargas. the woman who plays Angelique.
Oh.
And he got into the makeup. He went for a couple of hours or 3 hours or whatever to get on the makeup. He got into the limo with Valentina Vargas. They drove all the way to that theater where there was some kind of thing going on. I don't remember if it was like one of those, award shows or something. And then she didn't want to come out. She ended up staying in the limo. And he had to go by himself. And he just came out of the limo, walked down the red carpet. They took pictures. Then he got back in the limo. They just went away. And he told me that's where that picture's from. And I was like, oh, wow, okay. Well, thanks for letting me know. And I think I might still have that picture on my hard drive somewhere. If I do, I'll just send it to Ryan so he can put it up.
Okay.
Yeah, just a little bit of trivia.
Doug used to dress up as Pinhead for conventions. There's a Los Angeles Weekend of Horrors convention, and there's pictures in the Cinebeam interview here where he's dressed up in full regalia for the convention itself.
Oh,
man,
cool.
That would be that'd be rough. I mean, I guess he's used to being in that makeup for long hours, but
I think that time in the early '90s he was doing that a lot. It was kind of like how he made his money then after beside the films, with these appearances with the MTV and at these conventions. Because I think Clive was at this Los Angeles Weekend of Horrors as well. It was like a number of people from the cast were at it. I'll have to look into it more because I was unaware of it until I just picked up the magazine again.
Sorry, we had to cut that episode off so abruptly, but like I said, this had to be cut into 2 parts, and there really wasn't a big transition between the 2 different movies. So anyway, in about a week or so, you'll be hearing we'll get you the second part, which will be episode 40 about Hellraiser 4, Bloodlines. So anyway, this next song I thought was kind of fun. I know people are probably going to say, that wasn't in the Hellraiser 3 soundtrack. I heard this version first. This is the Ozzy Osbourne version of Hellraiser from his No More Tears album. He and Lemmy wrote this song together, and the Motorhead version appeared on the Motorhead March or Die album and in the Hellraiser 3 soundtrack, and the Ozzy Osbourne one went on the Ozzy Osbourne No More Tears album, and this was in about 1991, so before the Hellraiser 3 movie came out. So I heard this song first from Ozzy Osbourne, and then and then from Motorhead, then on the Hellraiser 3 soundtrack. All right. You can reach us on the web at www.clivebarkercast.com. This podcast is in iTunes, so please leave us a review. That'll help boost, our number of listeners quite a bit if you can give us a review. We have a Facebook page, and please join the Occupy Midian group. Jose and I are administrators there. On Twitter, we're at BarkerCast or at Occupy Midian, and the forum is www.clivebarkerfans.com/forum. Max Lichter's Pyramid Gallery is pyramid-gallery.com, and we'll have a link to that in the show notes. And Mark Buckle's website, The Labyrinth, is http://labyrinth.me.ht. Also, look up Hellraiser Deader Winter's Lament by Jonathan Kui on YouTube, and Hellraiser Prophecy on YouTube, also by Jonathan Kui. Hello, this is Ryan again. In the original airing of this episode back in 2013, we had the song Hellraiser by Ozzy Osbourne right here. In order to respect the rights holders, we've removed it from the episode, and I recommend you find Hellraiser by Ozzy Osbourne and give it a listen. Thanks for understanding. And this podcast, having no beginning, will have no end.
That's a wrap.